Action. Okay, hopefully I dial this technology piece better than I did yesterday. I really appreciate you guys coming on Friday afternoon. It's beautiful outside in Portland, Oregon, man. We've got like almost 80 degrees. I was enjoying some sunshine just now. Got a little allergies happening, so if I'm seem like I'm crying, it's not because I just love this man that much. It's actually I do. It's exactly what I'm crying. Uh, I mentioned in a promotion for this conversation about all of the pedigree that this guy has behind his playing. If you go to All Music and you look at the discography and the album credits, you're never going to find somebody that has this many credits to his name. All the way back from the late 60s, I made a mistake when I promoted saying that you've probably seen him in videos of Robert Palmer and Chic and Blondie. So he's going to clarify.
Late 60s, man. I'm not that old.
Oh, you got some music credits then, but in the 70s is when you really blew up. So, but yeah. you can clarify all that stuff, and we can do that by letting me introduce, ladies and gentlemen, we've got Eddie Martinez. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Thank you, Kevin. It's great to be here. This is fun. This is really a lot of fun. You know?
We're gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun.
Yes, I mean, just the thought of catching up with you, and then other people are listening in if they want to chime in with a question or something.
Yeah, but you got a lot of fans out there. I mean, not just the locals, but I told you about this back in the day, and we're going to go through a bunch of stories today. This is going to be all about storytelling, right? But just before we hopped on here, I was thinking for sure I was going to see the 70s Eddie Martinez with the big afro, the quarantine hair. And
dude, it was getting there, man. It was totally getting there.
You changed out of your pajamas, you put some gel in the hair, and shaved the beard just for me. I feel honored.
Man, I had some serious foliage going on, man. I was like,
yeah. Well, man,
it was like,
are you cooped up? Are you quarantined at home? Mostly just staying
home with the family. Where we live, it's really kind of like the burbs. It's beautiful. It's not really. It's like I'm in Southwest, but I feel like I'm away. So there's some places to walk, not too many people around. So when we do go on a walk, it's we don't have to deal with, oh my God, we're too close to somebody else. It's social distancing, and get my steps in every day.
Good man. You're in the village, right?
Pardon?
You're down in the village.
No.
Oh, you moved?
Yeah, moved. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We moved about a year and a half ago. So
don't share your address with anyone. I
won't.
I'll bet you probably have some stalker stories from back in the day, but we don't even have to go there, man. Oh man, I miss that smile. I miss that smile, dude. I miss you.
Oh man, yeah. The psychos used to come to some of the gigs, man. That's a whole other story.
Well, we'll get there. You want to jump right in, man? Let's.
No, not there.
No, not the psychos. But let's go back to your history, man. I mean, tell me, you grew up in the Bronx.
Yeah, I was born in Queens, actually.
Oh, okay, all right.
In Ozone Park, and lived in Hollis. It's so funny that the Run DMC,
right?
They're from Hollis, and I grew up there up until around 10 years old, and then moved to the Bronx, and the South Bronx to be precise. A couple of blocks from Yankee Stadium, and then a little bit further north, but still ostensibly the South Bronx, near the Cross Bronx Expressway, and that's where I grew up, man, and that's where my my fascination with music came about. Just like everybody else, I saw the Beatles on Sullivan.
That was it, huh?
Yeah, man. It was like, oh my God, this is like, holy cow.
Were you playing guitar or anything at that point?
No, I wasn't. That was a dream.
Really?
Yeah, it was just a dream.
Okay.
At that point, I saw them playing, and I gravitated towards bass, man. I don't know what it was, man, but I would make like a mimic bass with like a bedboard from a plank from underneath the bed, and just take some marker, and I did the frets, and I just like be miming, doing the air guitar, fake guitar kind of thing when I was a kid. Then
was it McCartney that got you, or was it like I hadn't talked to people about the Beatles sort of influence other than they saw Ed Sullivan, but Nolan, my youngest son, right, at 10, he became an obsessed Beatles fan.
Yeah.
And I wasn't hip to a lot of the obscure stuff, so we went to the Magical Mystery Tour in Liverpool. We went down, did the whole deal in Liverpool and London with him. And he taught me so much about the Beatles. It was great. But he jumps from Beatle to Beatle kind of in right now. George Harrison is his guy, right? But was it McCartney that got you first? Because you mentioned like in the bass, was it his style or his sound or?
Well, it's like really interesting. I've spoken about this a couple of times, but not in too much depth. I think before I knew that I had a musical ability, I'd be able to hear stuff and say, that's complex, or that's not right. Or, you know, whether it was a movie that I was watching, a film score, whether it was pop music. And when I heard the Beatles, there was something so fresh to it. It was like their voicings and their harmonies where they weren't kind of like, they weren't the Everly Brothers who had a really distinct harmony. They weren't the Four Freshmen, you know, from the 40s and early 50s that were really complex with their real close harmonies. But they had a thing that was just so unique to themselves. And, you know, it's like I heard that sixth chord on, She Loves You at the end. It's like, oh man, this is like, it tickled me, you know, in a different place, you know.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
You know, and been lucky enough, I met John when I was 18 or 19 years old, when I was recording with a band called Mother Night. And this is at the record plant in New York. And we were in Studio A, and John was in Studio B with Yoko and Buzzy Linhart at the time, Elephant's Memory.
Okay.
In that kind of era. And met Skunk Baxter back in those days. And he was just a repair guy, you know.
Wow.
He's gone on to, you know, just amazing, you know, guitar work himself, you know. And then I met Ringo. I was at Pinewood Studios where they did all the Bond stuff, and was doing the Island Records 25th anniversary special program. This was back in the 80s, quite a while ago. And Eric Clapton was on the special, and I knew Alan Rogan, and Alan Rogan introduced me to Eric, who was really very, very nice. And he introduced me to Ringo in the room, you know, and needless to say, Ringo was a fan. So what do you say? I mean, it's like, holy cow, you know, I'm talking to Ringo. It's like, the first thing I thanked him, you know, I thanked him for all the incredible music. And he was so gracious, and he just loved the work that I was doing with Robert and stuff.
Wow.
So it was great. And almost met George Harrison because I was recording at Power Station with my own band Distance at the same time Eric was recording Journeyman.
Okay. And
actually I played rhythm guitar on one song on that recording project. It didn't make the final album, but I worked on a track, and Russ Titleman, who was the producer, was kind enough to ask me. I was just hanging out at the studio.
Oh my God.
You know, it's like one of these things. Talk about falling upstairs, man. That's some deep shit.
No, but you'd already been at Power Station. I mean, everybody there knew you. It's not like you're just walking in out the street and say, "Oh,
Power Station was like a second home.
Yeah.
To me, back in the day. It was a studio that I worked at the most. Yeah. You know, there were other great studios, Electric Ladyland and Bright Track and Hit Factory and all these legendary places. But
hold on.
Yes.
Before you continue, I have to preface this because people that might not know your story yet are going to listen to you, and they're going to be like, well, hold on a second. Like, everybody out there has met like the world's greatest name dropper. This is not him. What Eddie does, this is it. Like, he's going to tell you stories. I get goosebumps every time I talk to you, you know, because it's the same thing. Jennifer Batten, same thing, right? You're like, I'll think, oh man, I met these amazing people with these amazing experiences. And then Eddie comes along and he's like, here, hold my beer. But it's never that you're so humble about all this, but dude, it's like, there is not a stone left unturned with you, man. I mean, I didn't know anything about the Beatles connections, right? About you meeting John and Ringo, but I know we're just getting started with this thing, man.
It's really interesting. It's when you do this for a living, and you know, I mean, you never want to forget your foundation as a human being.
Absolutely.
And that comes from my parents. And my parents are very humble people. And, you know, humility has nothing to do with self-confidence and, you know, and arrogance. You know, humility is just about being yourself, being comfortable in your own skin. So to me, it was all about the work. It was all about the journey. I love playing music. I love working on projects with other artists and people. And you're trying to find something, you know, to be a catalyst for a song, finding the right thing. And, you know, as much as I love all the big frontal guitar, big shit that I did, I love playing that shing-a-ling stuff on the background or those muted guitar parts on funk records, because that's where to me, that's where a lot of the magic lies.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if the track's not swinging, when you put the big guitars, it doesn't mean shit.
Right. Absolutely,
that
man.
stuff, man, that's making that hi-hat swing and all that kind of shit. Oh, I love that stuff, man. It's like, there's a real art to that.
There is. So going back to the point where you said you started with bass and you were air guitaring and playing air guitar. Did you start right off with lessons? Did you get any kind of formal training right away, or were you just
no, okay. I really never had. I had a few lessons, but that was so much later on. I asked my dad if he'd be able to save up some dough to get me a guitar.
Yeah.
And it took a while because, you know, my beginnings are humble, you know, and we didn't have the money. I mean, there were 7 kids.
Yeah.
We had an uncle. So ostensibly there were 10 people in the house all the time, and 10 people to feed, and just surviving, you know, in the South Bronx. So my dad saved up for quite a while and bought me an acoustic guitar, and I played that until it literally fell apart.
Wow.
And it really started out with my brother, Roberto.
Okay.
He was given a plastic guitar for Christmas, little toy thing.
Yeah.
He didn't play it. He had no interest in it. So I'm plucking on this thing. I said, man, I was feeling it.
Yeah.
So my father noticed that, got me my acoustic guitar. I played that literally until it fell apart. I mean, the bridge came up, and I tried putting some string down and hold it down and stuff. Then he bought me an electric guitar and an amp. And then after that, I was on my own.
Wow. What year was that?
Oh, man, this had to have been around.
Well, actually, you don't have to give the year. Just tell me how old you were.
I think I was around 14.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right on. Just like you're hitting puberty, man, when everybody else is only thinking about hooking up with chicks. Eddie discovered his love for the guitar.
Oh, dude, yeah, man. Yeah, you got a point there, man.
Yeah. No, I mean,
my older brothers, man, they were out there doing the Rico Suave thing.
Right. Yeah.
My brothers are legendary in that. I mean, come on, late 60s.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, you know.
Oh my God, it was crazy. I mean, oh man,
well,
I was a nerd. I was, you know, I had to play guitar.
Yeah.
I had to play. I had to get into it, and I was obsessed.
Okay.
I was obsessed with the instrument.
Just like, what did you? I mean, obviously, we didn't have YouTube then. We didn't have
YouTube. You just had records. You do the needle drop thing.
Yeah. Yep.
You know. Oh, shit, what's Clapton doing there on Badge? You know what I mean? It's like, it's like,
and just over and over again. Drop it, go back.
Drop it. Yeah. You know, Axis Bold as Love, Jimmy, those triplets he plays before going into the outro kind of solo.
Oh man, you
that kind of shit, man.
You have that. Honestly, playing Manic Depression with you is one of the most insane experiences I've ever had. Because I go to school, I just sit back and listen to you play, and man, I'm not trying to kiss your ass, dude. I just think, wow, I pinch myself going, who gets this kind of experience, right? And so it's almost like I'm that 14-year-old kid again, right? Playing, you know, along with the records with you. But all right, so you're listening to Clapton and Jimmy and
Jimmy, Clapton.
Any concerts at that point?
My first concert is a mind blower, bro.
Okay, here, hold my beer.
First concert was Soft Machine, the Chambers Brothers.
Oh my God. Okay.
Janis Joplin in the holding company, and Jimi Hendrix.
No.
Singer Bowl, my first concert, man.
Oh my God. Wow.
It was amazing because everybody was so incredible. Everyone was so incredible. And I mean, after Janis Joplin, because I mean, she came up on stage, it was like the whole stereotypical thing you used to hear about her coming up on stage with a bottle of Southern Comfort. That's exactly what she did. She had a bottle of Southern Comfort up there on that stage. She sang her ass off. It was just so amazing. I says, oh man, Chambers Brothers with Time Has Come Today and the Soft Machine playing this other stuff. I don't know whether that was when Holdsworth was with Soft Machine, or was it pre-Holdsworth, or was it post-Holdsworth? I don't remember. That said, it was an amazing show. And then I was just, holy shit, what's Hendrix? What's next?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like he came out, the first tune he did, I believe, was Are You Experienced?
Oh my God.
And I fucking, the top of my head just unscrewed. I just started levitating and shit. And I was such a fan.
Oh my God.
Wow. It was so funny, man. It's like, I got there so early, man. I think I was the first person in the place. So I thought my seat was dope, and an usher said, "Oh no, buddy, you need to go back." So I
Oh
go back. It was
no.
like it was the next to last row, but at least I got
Oh
to see it. I got
yeah.
this. It was amazing. It changed my life in so many ways. It was just, oh man, it's a great memory.
That's did you pretty much stay there in New York for that all those formative years, or did you move around?
No, I was in the Bronx up until, oh my God, I moved to Westchester in the mid '80s,
Okay.
and then lived in Westchester until moving out here in 2001. So yes,
Wow.
basically in New York State for many years of my life.
And you a lot of family stayed there as well, right? I knew your
It's
dad
so
moved out
funny.
here.
Most of my immediate family is here.
Oh
All my
yeah.
brothers, I have all my brothers are here, but one that lives in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man,
So,
I met quite a few of those family members, man. Good brothers. I love the.
oh,
I mean, I guess it stands to reason that you're this close knit Puerto Rican family growing up in the Bronx, but
mhm.
I love the closeness. You know, the just the true sense of familia. You know that you guys
Yes.
had, and I think it's so rare these days to have that. You know, and
Well, the commodity that we had, even though we didn't have much, but we had plenty of love
yeah,
and we had plenty of guidance, and that is golden. It's golden. I mean, I
it's
mean,
true. Yeah,
we lived in the fifth story of a five-story walk-up, so bringing up groceries or carrying up gear. This was
oh,
so
gear.
fun.
That's why you weren't playing drums, man. You know.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
so your dad got you the guitar. Were the brothers kind of jealous that you went that route, or were they like supportive of you?
They were supportive of me. They weren't jealous that I got a guitar.
Cool.
I don't think they really had any interest. It was
They all had their thing.
they all had their own individual things. You know.
And I bet as time went on, I mean, I know you said you were obsessed. You just you absorbed the guitar.
Oh
So you
yeah.
saw these concerts that just kept fueling the fire and playing. What?
Yeah, it was like at first it was the Beatles, and it's like I had my own. My first Beatle album was Revolver, and then
Oh,
I went back and got Meet the Beatles and all the other stuff, and then I started, and I was just had my own little section, in my closet, man. Had my Beatle albums. I wouldn't let it mingle with all the other albums to get them. I still have those records to this day.
you quarantine those records in the corner.
Yes, yes. Still quarantine, man. I've got my Revolver album is in impeccable condition.
Wow.
I mean, it's impeccable.
Wow.
And all my other records are in really good condition. Most of them are. Some are funky, but most of them are really in great condition.
God.
And I'm in the process of getting. Still have my AR turntable that I had back in the '80s. I just need to get, an integrated amp and some really cool speakers and get the vinyl going.
Right on. That's good, man. So at that point, mid-teens, were you looking around at bands and hooking up with dudes to play?
Yeah, actually, I some friends in junior high school
Okay.
played. A buddy of mine, Warren Cullen, and he was a drummer and still plays.
Really? Okay.
He lives in Florida, and plays professionally down there. And some other friends of mine, Danny, and there was Donald Towns, I believe, and we just played top 40,
Wow. Yeah.
and
And
we
this
just kept doing that, for a minute.
in junior high.
Junior high and high school, yes.
Okay. Playing dances.
Yeah, and pardon?
You getting the dances at the school or any of those kind of gigs happening?
Actually, I did one. Actually, I did. I remember doing a junior high school gig when I was in high school, and I played at my junior high with my band.
Right on.
And I just kept doing that until in my senior year of high school, Now Rogers, who's one of my oldest friends in the business, literally lived around the corner from me. I could see his building. He could see my building from his room and stuff. And so we used to walk to school in the morning, and
Wow.
it was amazing.
Wow.
So he called me up and says, Eddie, here's a number. Call. Oh gosh, Robert. Let's see, what was his name? Robert Taylor, I think his name was. He was the trumpet player for this band called Mother Night. I called him up and set up a time to come audition. So I took 2 trains and a bus from the Bronx all the way out to Queens.
Oh,
And I got this gig with this band called Mother Night, and I was 18. and that summer, after I graduated high school, we went to south of France, and we played all along the Côte d'Azur. You know, we played Nice, Cannes, and we had like a residency in Saint-Tropez for 2 months.
What? Okay, hold
The
on.
entire summer.
Now,
It was amazing.
okay, so musicians out there that are thinking, oh yeah, so I'm gonna, I started a band at 18, and a gig just happens where we travel and tour France. That just doesn't happen. So how did this come about? Who booked it?
Well, some people that had seen us play in New York, because it was a great band.
Yeah.
It was really the beginning of my higher education as a musician. It was an incredible array of musicians. I think the drummer was right around my age, but everybody else was older.
Mm-hmm.
So these were like seasoned cats that really knew their shit musically. They had great knowledge comprehensively of music, whether it was pop, whether it was rock, or was it straight ahead jazz. And the book that we had in terms of what we played was really varied. We played all the James Brown stuff. We played all the Dyke and Blazer stuff. We also played Santana. We played Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Chicago, all the prominent horn bands that were happening in the late 60s, early 70s, and some badass musicians.
And original stuff too, or just covers?
Yes. And so after this residency in the south of France, we came back and we started honing in on our original music. And then we got into a bidding war with Atlantic Records and another label. We did our showcases, and there was a bit of a bidding war. Columbia Records went out. They won the whole bid, and we went with them.
Wow.
And I was barely 19.
Wow.
And remember sitting in Clive Davis's office after we signed, and he was really cool. We're all sitting there, and he's playing this Laura Nyro record that was about to come out, and he was saying this is going to be a really big record, and it's that Gonna Take a Miracle album, I believe, with Nona Hendrix and Patti LaBelle and Sarah Dash from LaBelle singing along with Laura Nyro. It was just amazing stuff. So that's a moment I'll never forget.
Not bad.
So that was the entrance. Just because you have a record deal doesn't mean that you've made it.
Right. Right.
For a second, but you're still paying dues as that comes along.
Yeah. You were a young band, but you said the guys were a little bit older. So did you have representation that kind of looked out for you, making sure you didn't get ripped off in the deal? Or
yeah, we had a manager, that was looking out for us.
Cool.
But hindsight being 2020, I wish we had had our own independent counsel, looking, at the finer details. But hey, hindsight's always 2020, isn't it?
Yeah, everybody has that story, man.
Oh man.
Tell me, do you have any old videos of the bands that you archived?
All we have is the record that we made. There are no videos of that band that I know of.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, I'd love to. Oh man,
yeah,
it was a blazing band, and still quite legendary, like in Jamaica and in New York, in certain circles, players and stuff like that. It's kind of like a musician's band.
Yeah,
because this is around the same time that Mandrill and Earth, Wind and Fire were coming out, and it was before Earth, Wind and Fire really blew up. But the band was short-lived, unfortunately. We never got to make another album. We did put out another single after we left Columbia Records on Buddha Records. It was the first tune that I had ever composed.
Oh, really?
Called Say Brother. Yeah, it was a fun tune.
Yeah. You still have those records around? The single and then
I have it as a file. Yeah, I need to push it up there and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great stuff, man. I mean, really, you've got such an amazing chronology, having just a sort of a timeline and then little sound snippets from each place, and maybe whatever video you've got would be fun to see, because your evolution of style changed a lot over the years too, right? I mean,
I think the earliest documentation of me playing is probably with LaBelle.
Okay.
Mid-70s.
Okay.
And that's with me and my buddy Carmine Rojas and the late Tony Thompson, Jose Rossi, great percussionist that went on to play with Weather Report and Talking Heads, and just great friends and great musicians that you just feel such an honor and privilege to play with.
Yeah, Carmine is he's one of those guys too that's just played with everybody, right? I mean, you and Rod, he had the tenure with Rod Stewart, and I really, really like that guy's energy just from the presentation he has online. I've never met him in person. I've heard wonderful things about him as a human, but he's one of those guys you can read his posts and think, you know what? I would love to sit down with that guy because you could tell he's the real deal. He's authentic.
He's the sweetest cat, man. He's
Yeah.
just really just he's my brother.
Yeah.
I mean, and I mean that in the pure sense of the word. I mean, it's like, I mean, we've never had a difference of opinion or an argument about anything. When I think about all the travels that we've done and all the gigs that we've done, and never, and you know, and I don't think we agree on everything,
Sure.
but this, you know, it's one of those kind of friendships that, I mean, it transcends that other bullshit. You know what I mean?
It's all about respect, right?
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
If you're dignified humans that respect each other, you know, then there's no need to fight, right?
Exactly,
So
exactly.
So you and Carmine had that history, and LaBelle was around for a bit.
Yep, yeah, man. And that's the first time I met Tony.
Okay.
And actually, the first time I met Tony was at a Stevie Wonder audition, way back in the day.
You were auditioning for Stevie?
Pardon? Yeah. Oh, this is a classic story, man.
Let's hear it, buddy. Fire it up.
This is sometime, I don't know, man, what year this had to have been. This had to have been like maybe the summer of 74 or something like that.
Okay.
And I'm walking on 57th Street. I'm walking west on 57th Street, like, oh man, what's like around where Tiffany's is, and what's the name of that classic clothing store?
Bloomingdale's?
Nope, not Bloomingdale's. It'll come back to me, but it's a really she place.
Okay.
So I'm walking west, and I've got my I didn't even have a gig bag. This is before gig bags in my world. You know, I had my tweed case of a Fender guitar. I had one guitar. It was a 1958 Stratocaster, the $270, which was all the money in the world back then. And so I'm walking, and then this brother stops me and says, hey, you know, and I had the fro, and I was looking the part.
Flared bell bottoms and.
Oh yeah, I had to have been wearing some flares, man, big time. You know?
Yeah.
So and this guy, yo, brother, you play guitar? And I says, yeah, I do. He says, why don't you come to Bill's? You know, he says, I'm Stevie Wonder's brother.
Oh my
God. And he's looking for new cats to play with, and was wondering whether you want to come to Bill's rehearsal studio this afternoon and just hang out, and play. And I knew where Bill's rehearsal studio. I'd rehearsed there many times. So I go there later on in the day, and there are a lot of people there, man. It's the first time I met Greg Fillinganes was there, and the great Ricky Lawson, God rest his soul. I met Ricky Lawson at those auditions. And I met Michael Cimbello, who'd been playing guitar, who's just a monster player.
You bet.
And so long story short, Stevie doesn't show up. I mean, there were a lot of people. This place was packed. It was literally like a cattle call. And I met Tony Thompson there, so we exchanged numbers and stuff like that. And well, needless to say, I did get to audition with Stevie Wonder, but I didn't get the gig. And but he was kind enough to relay to me, he says, you sound really great, but it's not what I'm looking for right now, and that was really cool. And he says, by the way, I want you to go to my attorney's office and pick up a check.
Paid you for the rehearsal or for the audition?
Paid me for the audition.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I've never been able to really thank him subsequently.
But you have.
If I ever did meet him again, I would thank him profusely from the bottom of my heart, because he was so wonderful. He took us in. We hung out with him at the recording studio when he was making songs in the key of life. He said, come on to the studio tomorrow, me and Denzel Miller. Denzel Miller was another brilliant musician, and he didn't get the gig. Greg wound up with the gig. Greg is just a monster player, and was very happy for him. It's led to his esteemed career. So that check, which was a lot of money for me in those days, and it enabled me to move in from a 5-story walk-up with my wife at the time. I've since remarried, but it enabled me to move up from a funky apartment to a much nicer place with an elevator. And
wait a minute. This is just the audition check?
Yes.
Dude.
Yes.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that. It's really, and you kind of learn from those experiences in terms of how to handle people in certain situations. It's like, say, if I'm working with someone and it doesn't work out, it's like I'll pay them something for their time.
Yeah.
And that's the way I roll now, you know.
You've
And
always been that way since I've known you. Rehearsals, even, you know, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I was going to say that makes more sense to me now because you exemplified this dignity. I was blown away by your generosity. We would do some gigs, and for whatever reason, you know, the club hadn't promoted, or maybe just for, you know, an off night, and people
oh,
didn't
when
know
we
it.
did that residency, man, it's like, to me, it was just like, I wanted to get our legs on stage,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And because it's a whole different dynamic. You can practice all you want in a rehearsal studio, but there's nothing like gig chops as
Right.
opposed to rehearsal chops or bedroom chops, that
Right.
kind of, you know.
But
So
you took
thank
it
you, kind of you.
all the time, man, you know, and I appreciate that. So all right. So I'll let you get back to that story. All right. So
Yeah,
so
it enabled us to move to a much nicer place, and I've never forgotten that. So Stevie, anywhere out there in the ethos that you are, somewhere probably in Southern California, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It made a world of a difference in my life.
that's, you know, it'll probably get back to him. A handful of people that are on here have done little one-offs with him, you know, friends of mine.
Okay.
But I had mentioned this the other day that about 2.5 years ago, Caleb, my oldest son, and I went down to the NAMM show, and it was his first NAMM.
Okay.
And so people that don't know, it's the North American Music Merchandisers, North American, I guess, yeah, North American National
Music
Association of Merchandisers.
Yes, music merchants.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. So it's essentially a huge trade show where all the best, you know, musicians in the world and all the manufacturers get together and do a lot of playing, a lot of swag swapping. And the last day of NAMM, Sunday, it kind of closes down. Everybody has just done the whole deal for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sunday
Yeah.
is kind of the wind down day. And we close down the Roland wing on Sunday at like 4 o'clock, right? They're closing and there's nobody in Roland, but we were checking out electronic drums. And this entourage pushes past us, and it's Stevie with like his 8 handlers, his bodyguards, right? And he walks past, and I've seen him there a couple of times, and you know, there's that energy. You get the goosebumps. You can feel that the energy in the room
Oh, yeah.
just magnifies. And Stevie sits down behind this keyboard and starts playing. Doesn't feel it out. He just starts playing and chopping out. And my son's like, "What's that?" And I go, "You know, that's Stevie Wonder." And he goes, "No, Stevie Wonder's blind." And I go, "I know." And he goes, no, that dude's he's looking at his keys." And I go, "I'm telling you, that's the deal about Stevie Wonder, dude. He's legit." But Caleb, you know, he thought this is fake news, man. You know, he thought there's no way this guy can play like that, right? But it's remarkable, you know, the just that a handful of people in the world are like that, right? They can just part C's, you know, with the the whatever magic and chemistry and blessings they've got, man. But
Oh
and
man, it's an amazing chapter for me. Even though I
yeah,
didn't get to play with them or tour with them, but just experiencing and hanging out with them for a couple of days was really just. I mean, because he invited Denzel and me to the recording studio. He was recording at the Hit Factory
okay,
over on. It was not where the Hit Factory was in the '90s, but it was way back, and it was in a different location. It's actually where there's a studio in New York for New Yorkers. I think it's called Sear Sound. You know, and that's Sear Sound. Before it was Sear Sound, was the old Hit Factory.
okay.
With that facility that we hung out and stuff. It was just wow, totally. It was an awesome experience. I just got a thing saying my internet is unstable. Is everything copacetic on your end?
You're freezing up a tiny bit. Your audio's staying there, but your picture screen jumps a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, if it lags for a little bit and you freeze up, I may have it we'll hang out for a second and bring you back in.
Okay.
You know, sometimes, you know, when we're chewing up a bunch of bandwidth with a couple of live streams, you know, the internet
Yeah.
company.
So let me see what this thing. Let me put my cheaters on.
All right, no
Yeah,
problem.
it looks copacetic here, man. So
Good, right on. You know, so all right, so Stevie, the audition thing changed your life. Now, how about you know, from that transition? Obviously, you got some other gigs. How did these other, like, what was next for you?
yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. There are things that you can take from an audition, that you could feel defeated, or you can feel emboldened and excited. And and for me, it was the latter. I decided to, okay, I need to do some work. I need to get better, and but it didn't defeat me.
What do you
Uh,
think you felt like you had to work on at that point?
um, I think that I just didn't have enough experience. I don't think at that point, I don't know if I had as big of a comprehensive experience musically as um, Stevie's universe would have entailed.
Okay.
So I just started shedding and started getting better and started focusing on a whole different approach. Because to me, I find growing up in the big cities, you have to be you have to be versatile.
Yeah.
It's not like finding a niche. It's like you have to be proficient in a lot of different styles if you want to work. If you want to do different sessions, because there's certain sessions they just playing the funk stuff, and which is which is an art in itself.
Absolutely.
And then there's certain other sessions that require a different flavor or something with bigger guitar, and I just really kind of increased in both of those different areas. That certain producers would call me for the funk, and certain producers would just call me for the big stuff, crunch stuff, and then certain producers would call me for everything because they knew that I'd be able to cover it. And so that's what it enabled me to do. So then the next audition I went on was with LaBelle.
Okay.
And that was about maybe a year later. And I got the gig. It was a cattle call and it was a shootout between me and two other guitarists. And I was the last man standing and got the gig. And it was invaluable, the education of touring with them. It was
How much?
just, pardon?
Did you go around the road right away with that band?
Yeah, I think, oh man, there was a lot of music to learn. I think we went, I think it was in rehearsals for 10 days and then we were off to LA to do TV shows.
Okay.
So the first show we did was a Cher show.
Wow. Was that your first TV gig?
First TV show was Cher show.
No kidding. With the
Yeah.
LaBelle. Okay.
Then did Soul Train with LaBelle, did Don Kirshner's rock concert, did a whole bunch of different TV shows, and that's a whole different kind of dynamic. We used to do the Mike Douglas show in Philadelphia. Then he moved to LA and we did his show from LA. We did Dinah Shore. I mean, this is old school stuff, man. This is like, old school schmaltz TV.
No, well, cool. My first TV show was with you, brother. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like NBC, Hit Me Baby One More Time, man.
Yes, I remember doing that, man. That was fun.
God, that was first, even though
emotion.
God,
Bottoms in the gang.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. I don't want to derail the conversation, but the TV thing is so weird, right? The energy and how square it feels, right? It's not like you walk up and you got the vibe of the crowd warming you up. You're in and out, and there's nothing to sort of like prep. It just
it's really, shows are done different ways. And I remember the Cher show. I don't even think there was an audience when we taped.
Wow.
And it was cold in that studio. And it was early. It wasn't like, okay, our downbeats at 3P. No, it was like, it was like really early in the morning that we did some of those segments. But each show's different. And I think that audio and just the experiential aspect of doing television now is so much better than it was back in the day, because we're doing the Mike Douglas show, and I'm telling you, the monitor looked like one of those little Victrolas from the 40s. No. Somebody would be trying to dial in a station, and you see it's kind of like this little kind of perforated cutout wood thing with like a fabric, like your old Victrola. It was hilarious, man. So you had to play really low volumes, but those things kind of like you learn how to adapt.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be on gigs. People think, oh, I can't get my sound. You better get something that you can get the job done, because you can't be fiddling around with a fucking amplifier.
Right. Yeah.
When, the director's saying, 3, 2, 1,
right.
And boom.
Yeah.
You learn how to get that shit done.
That's the truth, man. Wow. So lots of TV there. And I would imagine at that point, since producers are seeing you on TV, you are kind of becoming a household name, right? I mean, you've been in the scene for a while in New York. And so Eddie Martinez is kind of becoming more recognized, where we need somebody to fill something in. Is that kind of how this worked out for studio stuff for you?
The studio stuff really came about a little bit later. After my tenure with LaBelle, I did a record with Nona Hendrix, who was she was the principal songwriter and one of the members of LaBelle, and just a dear friend of mine to this day, an incredible poet, and she's still rocking and just doing all over multimedia stuff, incredible. So she was a real, oh man, she was a forerunner. She was a precursor to Black women rocking, and this was 1977, and it was just, it was off the beaten path, and it was really incredible because she wanted to rock.
Yeah.
She didn't want to do the R&B thing. She had done it. She'd been there. She had done that, and she felt that heavier music was a much better bed for what she was saying in her music and in her songs.
Right
So
on.
we did one album, and we did a tour, and we toured Europe, and we opened up for Peter Gabriel.
Oh,
Around the time of his first album, his first solo album, and me and Carmine and we were such a fan of Peter Gabriel, and that first album was, man, that's a classic.
Groundbreaker.
With Humdrum and Salisbury Hill and Here Comes the Flood and all that stuff, and we just love that. So it was a great tour. We had so much fun, and I would check Peter's show every night because the band he had with Tony Levin and Barry Murata, Sid McGuinness, and Bayetti, Todd Cochran, just an amazing array of musicians, so professional.
Yeah.
And the presentation every night was flawless. It was beautiful. And there was so much to glean from that. And so that's a really wonderful memory. And then the next step after that, after my tenure with Nona, was I get a call from Lenny White, which was a whole different kind of, it's like
hold tight.
A friend of mine, Denzel Miller, had been playing with him.
You froze up for just a sec.
Yeah,
go back. Yeah, just give it a sec because I want to hear this, man. Lenny White calls you up. I think you're back now. Let's try this.
All right. So I get a call from Lenny White to come down and play. So all of a sudden I'm in Lenny White's band, and with Don Blackman, Denzel Miller, Barry Johnson, Nick Morrock, who's just, incredible guitarist. So 2 guitarists, 2 keyboard players, a bass player, and Lenny. And we toured for a good couple of years. We made 3 albums, and that was like a higher education. It was a whole different, it rocked, but it was much more progressive. It was a lot of ensemble work, a lot more chops orientated things that I had to shed, to get ready for that. And it was such a great education for me, and working with those cats. I've even told Lenny subsequent, it's really funny as the years go by, you kind of like, you put in perspective what he as a band leader at the time was going with, a bunch of crazy motherfuckers like we were in the band. It's like, oh my God, we were just like these young freaking wonder kid kind of like crazies, you know what I mean?
But you mentioned education. You mentioned the education part of this. It's one thing that's really rare for bands. If they're touring, you talked about being Nona's band and watching Peter Gabriel every night, right? Like so many bands fail to do that. Not only just have camaraderie of the other bands that you're on tour with, but if you go out and you watch the magic that happens from the headliners, especially guys that have been around for a while, it's free education right there, man. It is.
And
it's like a free golden ticket.
It's so true. And, working with Nona and Patty and Sarah prior to that, they're such consummate professionals. You get to see, you can't buy that kind of education.
That's the truth, man. Yep.
You talk about professionalism, going up there, and each night you're getting goosebumps. Myself as a musician, on stage, you're getting the goosebumps because the shit starts transcending, and you start hearing them sing, and it's just that you can't buy that kind of stuff.
That's the truth.
So it was the same thing with Lenny. We were all pushing ourselves. He was pushing us. Lenny's pedigree as an artist and a musician, going back to Bitches Brew and all that stuff, and Chick Corea and Forever. It was just monster blazing, one of the great stylists, And so we did 3 albums, and I'm really proud of those records.
3. Okay.
Yeah. Then I get a call from Stanley Clark.
Oh my God. Okay.
He said, "What are you doing, man?" I says, "Well, I'm here in LA finishing this record." He says, "You want to go to a ball game with me?" So we went to see the Dodgers play.
Wow.
And he says, "Are you touring? You want to go out and play guitar with me and George Duke?"
Oh my God.
So I did that, and that was like, oh my God, it was like big. It was chops kind of funk-based music, but it was big. It was big guitar stuff, man, which is what I was so really dying to do.
Yeah.
Big mondo guitar riffs and playing those riffs with Stanley together and George. Oh man, what a great band. Denzel Miller, Stanley Clark, George Duke, Gordon Peak on drums and myself. Just an amazing kick-ass band. And that was great, great fun.
Did you, when you were like, I mean, obviously in the moment, we talked about this before we hopped online too, that you're a guy that really tries to stay present, right? I mean, we can all look back at stuff in the past or speculating about the future. It's not really helpful. But did you find yourself at the point where you were actually working with like George and Stanley, where there's there a point where you just pinch yourself and say, I had no clue that I was ever going to be at this point, or this is my path. This is what I've been born to do, and have aspirations of wanting to elevate. I mean,
I felt it's really interesting what you said. I felt that it was my destiny. I felt that I was born to do this because I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I mean, that was not in my lexicon of not doing what I wanted to do. There was a point that I decided that I wasn't going to be doing the gigs in the clubs any longer because cats could become lifers and be working in clubs, as and I didn't want to do that. So they'd look at me like I was nuts. I says, "Hey, we've got 6 weeks booked at this club. Why don't you want to do it?" Because I want to play on the records that you guys are going to be having to learn.
Right. Good, man.
And if I have to starve to do it, I'm going to get a chance to do it. And if I get my opportunity, I'm going to seize it. Awesome. And that's what I did.
Carpe diem.
And yes, I did starve.
Yeah.
But I went on all the cattle calls, and the more you win of those things, the better it is for you.
Yeah.
So there I'm playing with Stanley and George, and I never took this stuff for granted. I never did, because the beauty about working with those legends is, like, Stanley and George say, "The tune goes like this, Eddie, do your thing to it." That gave me such a sense of responsibility. Wow. Such a sense of responsibility that, man, I want to hook this shit up with my own thing that catapults this song. And that's what I did, and working with those guys, Stanley, George, and Lenny, there's a grace that they have, because I think they kind of understand their place in jazz, fusion, or whatever you want to call it, music. They understand where they are historically, but it's not something that they flex.
Okay, that's good that you mentioned that, because there's a lot of pretentious condescension amongst that status, where we know the guys that are up there that they can't be bothered to associate with the peons.
It's really interesting. It's not hubris, it's confidence.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I got from all those masters.
Wow.
Because it's a confidence. And I remember Stanley saying something to me and the rest of the cats. He says, "Hey, you know what, man? It's like, you're going to go on to great things. I don't want you playing with me forever."
Wow. And
it's like, and after I started working, that's when my session career really began.
Really?
I started, it was like a big bang for me in the early 80s. Because after my tenure with the Clark Duke Project, then I get a call. My friend Larry Smith calls me up, who is the producer of all the Run DMC stuff.
Oh my God.
Right. But this is before Run DMC emerged. This is 82.
Okay.
This is Eddie Blondie's auditions.
Hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. You froze and I heard Blondie. So back up for just a sec.
Okay.
Larry Smith calls you. You're good now. Let's hear it.
Hey, Blondie's holding auditions. This is the Village Voice user number. Call up, make an appointment, click.
Boom.
So I called up and I made an appointment, and I went down, and I'm thinking, there's no way that I'm going to get this gig. I just felt that I didn't fit the casting call, so to speak.
Yeah, and you show up and one of these things is not like the other.
Yep. I packed up a Stratocaster, went down. And I just my thought process was, I'm just gonna have some fun.
Cool.
I went down there, plugged into an amp, I dimed it, had a great audition. Debbie took a Polaroid of me, when I walked in, and we played for about maybe 20 minutes with Jimmy Destry and Nigel and Clem Burke.
Oh,
and Chris wasn't there because he was suffering from a medical condition that he's subsequently gotten over, and he's much better. This was many years ago.
Okay.
But Chris wasn't there, and okay, thanks. I thought it was fun. Bye. See ya. I get back home, and there was a call for me. I had the gig. I took the D train home, walked to my apartment, and I walk in. I had the gig.
Oh my God.
Then the rest is history, and I did their tour. It was a short tour, but it was so incredible. We still there?
We're here. I'm just sharing a little picture of Eddie from that day. This is one of your Marshall ads from the Blondie days, right?
Yes.
This is the origin of that style. Early '80s. You got the checkered Vans.
Yep. I got them on St. Mark's Place, man. Trash in vaudeville.
Look at that hairdo, man. That was the pre-mullet. You had the pre-afro mullet right there.
Yeah, man. That's a minute ago, man. That's like around Run DMC times and Robert Palmer times.
Okay, right on. Yeah. So you got the gig with Blondie.
I got the gig with Blondie, and we're rehearsing at the Palladium, which is like us rehearsing at the Schnitz on Broadway in Portland. You know what I mean? There's nobody there, just a full setup, lights, the whole rigging system, and we did our show there. We're flying on a Learjet. It was like it was surreal, from a D train to the Learjet. Then after the tour's back on the D train again. So
people are gonna want to know, man. Like, what was Debbie to work with at that point? That was early '80s. So like Rapture was just hit like coming out, and
no, Rapture was already a hit at that time. It was
that's right.
It was a post Rapture.
Okay,
Tide is High. It was still huge. I mean, they were still big.
Yeah, and she was classy and great to work with.
Sweetheart.
Okay.
Wonderful person. Love Debbie.
We love hearing that.
So cool. They were all cool. Work with Jimmy Destry was a fucking riot, and Clem Burke, great, steady, and Nigel Harrison, just a solid bass player. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So I'm playing all this complex shit with Lenny and with Stanley and George, and then I'm playing like call me. You know what I mean? It's
right.
Like, course,
But you know what though? That tune. Honestly, that song, like Clem's work on that song, to me is so underappreciated in the like rock world. Like a lot of guys that I've seen a million cover bands try to cover that thing, and there's a complexity to Clem's playing, and it like it's the way Ringo played, right? Ringo had a tiny lilt. There's a little lilt to Ringo's playing.
Yes.
You see a drummer try to cut Ringo parts, and it never sounds right because it's so stiff.
Yeah, Clem's a real unique player. His pocket is a bit brighter than Ringo's pocket to me.
Brighter.
Ringo's a bit more back on the back end, and Clem is a bit more right on it, proper.
You bet. But yeah,
in terms of where he sits, but I think he was playing. Well, didn't Keith Moon play premier drums?
He did.
Yeah, man, that was it. That was Clem's deal.
Yeah,
premier drums.
Right.
Played the shit out of him too.
I love that you got the even the drummers endorsements back then.
I knew what all the cats were playing. Lenny was playing Tama back in the day, and Walden would play Gretsch drums with Slingerland hardware.
Oh man, look at this! This is great.
Yeah, man. Oh, big time.
My drummer buddies here are gonna appreciate this. Speaking of our buddies, this is great, man. JD, Jimmy Max, rest his soul, but JD Studenberg, he said this is so great, man. He's got all these comments, and I know that he was a huge supporter of Eddie Martinez back in the early days when you first came here and you're on the scene, and I don't want to jump around. I'm super ADD, as you know, but it's neat to see these comments of people that get it, because like my pal Dave Chiavelli too is making comments. He went through, and you may have seen yesterday when I promoted the show. He went through the discography, and he said, "How did I not know?"
Okay,
Dave has seen me play with
discrepancies in that discography. Some of the Mongo stuff and some of the Latin-based stuff. That's not me. There was another Eddie Martinez in New York that was a pianist.
Okay, and he's the one. He had the '60s credits. That's what that came from.
Exactly.
All right. but there is a ton of your stuff in there that people would never believe. I mean, you talked Run DMC a minute ago. We can get to that.
Oh, yeah.
But David Lee Roth and Meatloaf and Mick Jagger and freaking Bonnie Tyler. Like, man, I mean, you could start throwing these out there, but how did that stuff all come about?
Well, it all came about after Blondie, after the Blondie tour. And then I just figured out, okay, I didn't want to tour as much anymore, because I toured with LaBelle, I toured with Nona, and toured with Blondie. I just really wanted to focus on the studio scene, because at that point, I was really starting to vibe in on what was going on in the session world, East Coast and the West Coast. Because I was really kind of like, I was vibing in on the shit that Steve Lukather was doing and Mike Landau was doing and Larry Carlton was doing. So I love, they brought more tone to the table as musicians. From my perspective. In New York was all about getting it done fast.
Right.
You know, you plug into a piece of shit twin reverb, and you know, with a good engineer, you could make it work, but it just wasn't as complex in terms of tones. I'm saying it's not about playing, because there's two different philosophies, and I tried to marry the two together in terms of what I was about as a musician and a player. So the sessions came after that, and I bumped into Bernard Edwards, because I'd known Bernard from Nile, and I'd given Nile Tony's phone number. I given Nile Rob Sabino's phone number, who was his first keyboard player in Chic. He lived right across the street from me. So I'm talking all over the place, but hey Eddie, I heard this great keyboard player, man. He's plays with this band called St. James Infirmary. Man, do you know who he is? I says, dude, he lives right across the street from me, and he's sitting on his front porch playing an acoustic guitar right now. So I went and gave him Niall's number, and that's how that came about. You know, so. But yeah, so let me flash forward.
Okay.
And then, I bumped into Bernard, and he and Niall had kind of just parted ways artistically and production-wise. They were taking a bit of a hiatus with Chic. They were going on to the independent productions and stuff like that. So Bernard was working on his first solo album, Glad to Be Here. And I called him up out of the blue and says, yeah, man, if you ever have any need, if you have any need for a guitar on anything that you're doing, just give me a holler. He says, hey man, I'm working on my record, you know, won't you come meet me for lunch? You know, so I met him down at this place called Bangkok. It's on 53rd Street and I think 8th Avenue. It's a Thai restaurant.
Nice.
So I still remember what he was eating. He was eating like fried, it was a flounder or something like that with chili sauce, man. I still remember that, man. I've got a photographic memory in a lot of cases, you know. And,
I'm glad you do, man.
And so he says, man, come down to the studio tomorrow around noon and we'll get going. So I get to the studio the next day, and I met Jason Corsaro. I met him earlier on another session, but it's the first time I really got to work with him as a musician. And that was the beginning of a great friendship. He passed away a few years ago, and one of the great engineers, you know. So, so that working with Bernard on that, he loved what I did. He kept asking me to come down to work on more tracks. And then that led to an association of working with him on a lot of records with Jeff Bova, who's a brilliant keyboard synthesist, composer, arranger, you name it, he does it.
So Bernard's producing these records, and he says, hey man, I need a cat. Eddie's my guy. And
Exactly. So he started calling me up on all the sessions that he was doing. And on one of the sessions, he said to me, because I was playing him some riffs and ideas that I had, he says, would you ever be willing to do a demo, you know, of your own stuff? I said, sure.
Yeah. So
we went into the studio with Jason, engineering, Steve Ferroni, the great Steve Ferroni, you know, and Bernard Edwards, myself, and Denzel Miller. We cut this track called Trudy, and that got me my record deal with Atco Records. Wow. And so that was the beginning of the studio thing. So around then, you know, that's early mid 80s. It was like 80, swing between 83 and 84.
So MTV is just popping. It just started to take off.
Exactly. And then I did the Run DMC stuff, and that was the first rap video ever played on MTV.
Wait a minute. Were you on the video too? I didn't catch this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm in both videos, King of Rock and Rock Box.
Oh, nice. All right. You keep talking. I got to find some of this and share this. This is great. All right.
So then, Larry Smith, who was a fine musician, he was a bassist, and we played together in bands with Omar Hakim
Oh,
and
wow.
and Denzel. And so he says, "Hey Eddie, I'm producing Run DMC, and I've got these beats. I want you to put your shit on it, you know." So there was a DMX drum machine, Larry's bass line, and that was it. And the cats rapping, Run and DMC
Wow.
rapping, and Jam Masters, you know, scratching and stuff, you know. And I just put a shitload of guitars on this thing. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's, man, this feels, and I just built it up. I was stacking guitars and harmonies and stuff like that, you know, kind of like almost like in a Brian May. I was thinking Brian May because I love the way he would get these harmonies going with in the tape compression from just doing so many different overdubs. It would kind of create an entity to itself. So I did that, and it felt like a great day's work. I mean, it just felt like I didn't know it was going to be that landmark and that kind of,
Right.
you know, big. I felt good about it.
And
Because
you had that, they gave you the constructive freedom to just go for it, man. The creative freedom to just do your thing.
yeah,
Oh,
Larry was he just wasn't someone who was just ensconced in a particular mindset relative to what was happening in the hip hop world.
yeah.
He had a full 360 because he played the instrument. He had a great knowledge of all different types of music.
Okay.
You know, he could play some jazz tunes. He could play some standards. You know, he played rock and funk really well, R&B. You know, so there's a well-rounded player. But he just immersed himself into the street guitar.
Wow. That's fantastic, man. So the DMC stuff comes out. You did the videos. Were you touring
Yeah.
with them at all? Did you go out with the hip hop thing?
No, I didn't go out with the hip hop thing. I think Russell asked me if I wanted to go out and tour with them, but I just didn't. You know, and I said, you know, I did a thing on AMC about songs that shook the world. It's a whole documentary just about that one song.
Okay.
But we shot a lot more than was used. But to echo what some of what I said is, I just didn't. At that point, I mean, I was really getting a lot of calls.
Yeah.
You
And
know, I
are
was
you
getting a
still,
lot.
you're still married then too, right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
you're going to stay home and work where the work was.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the money, you know, once you get a name for yourself and in the studio, and you could kind of like name your price back in the days when there were budgets,
Yeah.
you know, and so it was really cool. Things really started to take off. I was getting a lot of calls from different people that required a lot of different types of application, you know. So I was still trying to grasp, well, how am I going to do my thing?
Right.
Have a couple of stacks, and ostensibly somebody just spinning a record and playing along to a record. There would have to be some really interesting balances that I'd have to like get to feel and play with not really playing with a band, but playing along to a record. And
Yeah.
it seemed incongruous to what I was doing in terms of playing with musicians.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and you'd already been there with the greatest already. So
Yeah. So I kind of passed on that, but don't know. You know, it's really interesting where that would have led. Who knows? It could have led to some totally amazing things. You know,
well,
I mean, you know, I don't regret what I did.
sure. Yeah.
I
No,
wonder, you know, it's like, well, what if I would have done that? You know, so
well, a lot of people kind of get hung up on that, right? Maybe just passing on a gig that came their way, or you know, sort of reminiscing, and then you get sort of stuck in the past. But it's not like you hadn't. It doesn't sound like you burned any bridges, right? You and Russell Simmons
no,
still stayed tight.
no,
You
didn't
you
burn any bridges with them.
you
Not at all.
used to, and I would bet that people kind
They
of want to
probably
know.
wouldn't have been able to afford me, but that's another story.
So you got good at naming your price.
Well, you know, come on, you know,
Yeah.
it's like you struggle, you starve, you name your price, and if it doesn't work out, you got to be prepared to walk away. So you got to have some gonads.
You
You know what
bet.
I mean? So you
Yeah.
know, it's
Always be closing.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
ABC. All right, man. So, all right. So the DMC thing happens,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of getting the calls. Were you
Yeah, I
specifically
was playing
working
on
that?
Yoko Ono's record. I was doing a lot of sessions with Bill Laswell and Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare. And I mean, it's just like the things, it just started cascading and it started. And then all of a sudden, you know, in the span, I work on Jagger's LP. I
Wow.
work on Robert Palmer's record. I work on David Lee Roth's, and I work on Steve Winwood's record.
Wow.
You know, it's like boom, 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 boom. It's
Right.
like, it was crazy. It was crazy, and it was wonderful.
Oh,
You
all
know?
at the same time, same studio primarily.
No, let's see. Let's see. Laswell worked at a lot of different studios, but Palmer's stuff was done in Compass Point
Okay.
and in some in New York as well. Jagger's record was done at Compass Point in the Bahamas and done at Power Station in New York. And David Lee Roth was Studio A at Power Station.
Okay.
Those tracks are cut live.
Wow. Really?
Yes.
The whole band?
The whole band live.
What?
Barely overdubs on that. You know, obviously the vocals in the background solos are.
Yeah, Bissonette on drums on that one, right? And
no, John Robinson.
Oh, it was JR. Wow.
Yes, this was before Bissonette played with.
Okay.
So it was, let's see, Edgar Winter.
Oh.
Yeah. Edgar Winter, man. I used to see him play when I was a kid. It's the monster musician.
I still see him on the road all the time.
Absolutely.
Airports everywhere.
Yeah. And the great Willie Weeks. Oh my gosh. On bass. Let's see, Sid McGuinness. Right. Great guitarist. I've known him since the Gabriel days.
Oh yeah. Oh, he doing Gabriel on that gig?
Yeah, back then,
Okay.
on the Gabriel gig that I used to see every night, he was the guitarist.
I forgot about the Sid thing because there's a whole Letterman connection with you.
Oh yeah,
I forgot about all this, man.
Oh yeah. And who else was there? Brian Mann, I think his name was, synthesis.
Okay.
And then let's see, Sammy Figueroa on percussion. It was an absolute riot. Sammy Figueroa was one of the funniest cats, one of the most brilliant percussionists, and he was just cracking jokes and doing his Sammy Davis impersonation in between takes. Man, it was like, it was choice. It was really, it was great. So that was done there at Studio A. Let's see. Most of those records, let's see, Winwood was Studio C.
Really?
Played on Studio C at Power Station. That was Higher Love and Freedom Over Spill.
That whole Back in the High Life album.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it was great. It was, oh man, it was really, it's like sometimes you get the feeling that man, you get the chills, and it gets that kind of like, oh, this is smelly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
you could feel that in the studio. You was like, oh, this is the song that's gonna blow up, man. You knew it.
I knew it. Addicted to Love. As soon as Robert asked Tony to open the sock symbol on 3, boom,
yeah.
When that shit happened, that's just, oh shit, we just broke some new kind of sonic territory, and that was really, it was magic.
God,
that's a live track too.
Yeah.
And and I felt it with Higher Love.
Yeah.
Oh man, and I'm telling Russ, these are the reference vocals. I'm saying, it's like,
really?
Steve it was so.
Winwood was incredible, dude. That guy, he's
and to me, when I started working with Robert Palmer, it was really the beginning for me of really defining what I am as a guitarist in terms of what I bring. I felt that I was able to really contribute some really cool things to records that really sold well, that were maybe a little bit different from what was really going on at the time.
Big time.
And I'm really happy about that, especially Simply Irresistible. I feel like I got away with murder on that guitar solo because it's so kind of out, but it was the kind of solo that I really wanted to relearn so I could play it every night because it became a part of the song. If you played something else there, it just wouldn't, it just became a part of the song, just like Addicted. I really stayed true to there were other songs that I'd stretch out on and just like do what I was feeling in the moment. But those songs, I'm really, really happy about that you do a solo and it's just not, you're just not like wanking, you know what I mean? You're doing something that's kind of like really helping the song propel, and that shit's magical.
You can hear it. I mean, they're iconic sounds, and it's like you scooped a little bit of your soul and your heart out, right, and put it in the guitar. I mean, I know that sounds super corny, but when you listen,
it's kind of like, it's like I think about like Simply Irresistible, and basically what you're hearing there is kind of like you're hearing me, but you're hearing also my influences. There was some, and Jen Batten would get this. There's some Joe DiOrio kind of inspired things there, and then there's some chromatic licks is like a bop thing, we're working with some of the jazz cats, and then there's some rock stuff and some whammy stuff, and then some really cool bends,
And that was kind of unintentional, right? I mean, that just comes out. That's not like you thought, here's what I'm going to do there.
It's really trend of thought. Actually, that solo is a composite, of a few different solos, which it just kind of like, it was serendipitous how it kind of like fell into place. And Robert called that solo Large Marge from the Pee Wee Herman movie.
Yeah.
When that lady truck driver picks him up at night, and all of a sudden she turns to him and her face just becomes this fucking grotesque kind of like ugly monstrous thing.
That's what Robert called your solo?
Yeah, he called it Large Marge.
I love it. Oh my God, I love it, man. Wow.
That was fun. So that was really the beginning, and then the Jim Steinman stuff that emerged afterwards, and I mean that's a whole other chapter, eccentric mondo rock.
Yeah. I mean, you talk chapters, there are very few people on this planet that have the kind of chapters that you do. If you were to consolidate this historic part of your music career, because where you were at in these formative times in New York, getting all those session gigs, where if you look at the records that you were on, so many Grammy Award-winning records, these are records that every person listening has one of those records in their collection, at least, or dozens of them, and as a guy that kind of gets typecast as a side guy, right? I mean, really, if somebody were to ask, tell me about Eddie Martinez, they might call you a side guy because they've seen all the, but I mean, you stand on your own. But
well, I mean,
you're the wrecking crew. You know?
That's what I did, but hindsight, being what it is, I made the attempt to really embark on my own with my band at the time, and I really should have pursued maybe my own solo career a lot sooner than I did, really, to be honest with you. But I was just loving what I was doing.
Yeah, and you know what? Those chapters lead to where you're at right now. So when you talk about your own band, and we're gonna get to this most recent record too, man, because I touched on it a little bit in the preview.
I just tell people it's about the journey. I mean, it is like a cliche, but believe me, I mean, it's like, I was talking with Carmine the other day, and we're catching up on things, and I just say, it's like, I think my desire exceeded my ability. And it's not like it's like I worked really hard as a musician.
You could tell
to getting to be proficient and be good. Yeah. And really, what's important is developing and honing in on a sound.
Yeah.
But my desire to be there was as big as my ability.
Awesome.
And that's important. You've got to have that want.
Yeah, you bet, man.
To do it as a kid. And that's how come I tell kids, that are just starting out, you better not be in your 30s and start figuring out, well, I don't know what I want to do.
Right. Yeah. With anything, right? I mean,
with anything, it doesn't matter.
Get passionate about something and just go after it 110%, right?
You want to have permission to fail.
Yeah. Awesome.
You want to just go out there, get on the precipice, take the fucking leap.
Yeah.
You're young. Okay. You fall down, you get back up.
Amen.
You don't get an audition. Do the work, get back to it. Be in a present state of gratitude, irrespective of your circumstances.
Oh man. I mean, right now, you sort of take that parallel to right now, because we're all getting knocked down and have to get back up, right? You could see that the mental state of people right now in the pandemic is kind of taking a hit, right? You could see, if you look at social media, you can see the cracks starting to appear, right? Where this foundation's a little shaky. And being able to hold on to some of the stuff that's fulfilling, really, that's kind of why I started doing these conversations with my buddies, because I recognized, it's one opportunity where I was forced to get a chance to slow down and look at how blessed I was to have beautiful human beings in my life that have inspired me. And man, you talk about the sense of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
I could never have imagined finding people in my life that have touched me the way that like you have, and Jen Batten, and Bill Wadhams, like these people that have been formative in my time. But, in experience traveling, when I first started playing with you, I should tell you about the effect you had on some of these people, right? Because 2005 or 4, actually just before we did the Hit Me Baby show, I think it was around, maybe it's just right around that time, Animotion played with Gin Blossoms and a bunch of other bands, but Frampton was headlining the gig.
Right.
And I had never met Peter, but I'm walking backstage. There's a little bar, or there's a little tent where we played a massive wine and balloon festival. So it was a winery, and they were
Okay.
doing wine testing and a tasting. And I'd never smoked a cigar before. Peter walks up and he says, "Hey man, you want to share a cigar?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" This, goofy drummer from Animotion goes, and
Oh, he's a great guy.
but we started talking, and John Regan's playing bass with him, right? So
Oh yeah.
as I'm camped out with him over on the side, John Regan's like, "So what's the deal with your band? Where you from?" And I said, "I'm from Portland." And I said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "You Animotion, your main gig?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, I play with a bunch of other great people in Portland too, Jennifer Batten and Eddie Martinez." And John looks at me and he goes, "Wait a minute, you know Eddie Martinez?" And I said, "Yeah, man, what a beautiful human." He goes, "Dude, you got to call him right now. Eddie is one of my favorite humans on the planet."
Oh,
John,
John's a dear friend, man. We used to do sessions in New York and stuff, and he's a fine musician and just a great human being. We stay in touch.
yeah, man, he and Frampton both were lavish in praise about you and Jennifer, right? I mean, they just could not stop talking about your tone. That was the thing.
Oh
But
man.
but beyond the tone, that was where John just said, "Man," he said, "Eddie is like my brother," and
Oh,
I
that's so
I
sweet.
I
I
knew
feel the
John,
same way about him, man.
but people don't realize, right? And you think about hustling in New York and that music scene, they kind of they expect you to have to be cold and stoic and not even be vulnerable enough to kind of let yourself be close to another musician or another buddy, right? So
Mhm.
to me, that was fascinating, because I saw John, with Freely's Comet and doing that whole deal, and
Yes. Yeah.
I hadn't realized what a close knit circle of people that you've been around, like people in the scene that know.
Yeah.
When I
It's
talk about,
it was a tight knit kind of community. Everybody was doing their own thing, but everybody knew one another.
yeah,
It's really interesting. I bump into to John at gigs. We would do sessions. We'd do jingles together. I remember one jingle we did at Electric Ladyland with Joe Franco on
oh
drums,
my God,
and I forget what it was for, but I remember that. I remember that really well. It was fun, and John kicked ass as usual.
yeah,
So it
great
was,
player,
yeah, big time.
man. Or were there I mean, I think if you and I were going to talk about every record you played on, every experience you had, we'd be here for a couple of weeks, right? But were there any kind of like I don't want to look at this as like a woulda, coulda, shoulda, wish I had, but if there was a dream gig that you could have had, right? If you, as you were growing up and you were immersed in amazing musicians, but was there one, even, band that had passed away? Was there anybody that you thought, man, if I could just have that one opportunity to hop on stage with, who would it be?
Wow, there's several that come to mind. Um, uh, as much as a rocker as I am, I'm such a sucker for a pop song.
Yeah.
So, I mean, McCartney comes to mind. I mean, I just as a composer, as a kid, I would hone in on his harmonies because I'm a tenor,
Yeah.
and he'd be doing those tenor deals there, in the harmonies, and I gravitated towards where he sang.
Yeah.
It was easier for me in terms of feeling it and hearing it, and his compositions. I mean, it's like this. It's like here I'm like a freaking little kid in the South Bronx, and I'm driving to Fordham Road, and I'm buying these obscure Cilla Black records that Lennon and McCartney wrote. Like
Wow.
there's a tune that they wrote called "Step Inside Love," which is a great pop song. It's like it kind of almost has like bossa nova changes to it. It's so
Really?
yeah, it's just YouTube. It's up there. It's by Cilla
Okay.
Black. I had to find this record, so I went to Sam Goody's on Fordham Road, and I found this 45. It's like I'm living in the South Bronx, and everybody's listening to their Wow and
Right.
and we did. There was a lot of Latin music in my house and stuff.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of Tito Puente, Tito Rodriguez, and
Oh, nice.
all that stuff, and but here I'm going. I'm up to. I was a fucking weirdo, man. It's like,
Wow.
man, it's like I got the bell bottom pants on, and I'm getting this obscure pop tunes, man. It's like, wow,
You're alien.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was my thing, So I was searching.
I love it though,
Yeah.
man. Because I mean, that's probably what helped, expand. I mean, you talked about the diversity of all the kinds of music you played,
Mhm.
and it's crazy to hear you go from one tune where you'll play, I remember playing Gravity with you, right? So we're doing John Mayer tunes.
Uh-huh.
Beautiful. What a great, you talk about being a sucker for pop song. The dude's,
That's a great tune.
he's a ridiculous singer and what a freaking badass guitarist, right?
I think we rehearsed it. Did we ever play it live? I think we rehearsed it, but I don't know if we ever did it live.
I don't
Maybe
remember.
once.
It may be so,
Yeah.
but you could go from like a John Mayer tune to like Hendrix stuff and real
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, I would love to
Goblin.
have done some shit with like, Buddy Miles Express or something like that.
Wow, yeah,
Peter Gabriel was always, man, what he was doing in the late 70s and the early 80s was just like, that was just really, really amazing stuff.
yeah.
Sakamoto, man, I even talk about Ryuichi Sakamoto.
Right.
To me, those are dream gigs.
Right on.
Working with Ryuichi Sakamoto was just like, to me, that was the shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just amazing. He's such, I mean, yes, he's an Oscar winner. He won for The Last Emperor. He composed the score with David Byrne. And, but it was also, he's really kind of one of these multimedia kind of artists, because he's an actor as well. He's a composer. He writes for symphonies. Wow. He also is, Yellow Magic Orchestra. So this kind of really comprehensive music and world music thing that he did. And we had a band with David Palmer, who you probably know from.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Band.
Yeah.
And we had Barry Johnson on bass. We had Bernard Fowler singing, my dear friend from the Stones, Bernard Fowler. We had Jeff Bova. We had Indian percussionists. We had a Chinese this Chinese young lady playing the Kyoto, and all these amazing instruments. It was a wonderful experience, man. That was like so, because it was heavy, but it was complex. It was beautiful. It was demure. It was all these kind of things all thrown together. It was just experiential, just really heavy.
Wow. That's, yeah, you may be one of those people that I could say, what's your dream gig? And you're saying, I've done them all, I mean, really, like, there's no.
So, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I've been so fortunate, But, and then, on top of it, shoot, man, it's like when I think about, playing those classic Stones tunes with Jagger at Live Aid.
Oh my God.
That's just like.
Wait a minute. I didn't realize you did that. You're in Live Aid with Jagger?
Yeah. I did with Tina Turner and Jagger and the Hall & Oates band, and they had Eddie Kendricks and David Ruffin singing background, and Bashiri Johnson on percussion, and oh man,
wow,
G.E. Smith and oh man,
well,
T-Bone, oh my God, on bass.
God, yeah.
Mickey Curry on drums is
wow.
With Bryan Adams.
That's man. Right. Yeah. Were you playing? Did you play Bryan too?
No.
Okay. Oh, just on that gig. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he was playing drums.
Tasty player.
A long time.
God, speaking of drummers and wicked players, guys that are in the scene kind of know that Joe Bonamassa is a badass mofo with a badass band. And I know a handful of years ago, you and Joe, know each other well. And I remember seeing that.
He's a bud, he's a bud. I haven't seen him in a long time. And we communicate very little, but he's a friend.
But he pulls you up on stage when he's in town.
Pardon me?
He pulls you up on stage when he's in town, man. What's up with that?
It's so gracious. That's, he's a gracious cat. Yeah. He's really a monster player.
Yeah.
He's such a purveyor of the blues. You know what I mean? It's like, and I really enjoy his posts, and I love his love of vintage guitars, and I love it. Actually, hold on a second, man.
Oh yeah.
I love the old and the new. So
got a collection here. Nice. Oh, look at this.
I got my 65 Rosewood board Strat, and I've got this guitar that John Sir built for me.
Oh yeah, your Sirs.
Guitar,
okay.
So I got the old and the new. I love it all. And then I got this old 56 Stratocaster. So I'm a nut.
Look at that. That fretboard looks like it's had a little work on it.
Yeah, man. I need a Rosetta Stone to kind of figure that shit out, man. It's like It's like hieroglyphics on it.
So yeah, classic guitars with Bonamassa and his band.
Oh man, I mean, the band killed. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
Hal Bergman and Carmine. Ah man, it's just
and so
yeah.
you got to harness those cats and put them together for your most recent record.
Yep, Akosua.
Man,
Akosua. Yeah.
okay, so
It's
tell
my
me about.
wife's middle name. Akosua is a Ghanaian word. It
Hold,
means a baby girl born on a Sunday.
hold on, you froze up for a second. I definitely want to mention that. So you said it comes from.
Akosua is my wife's middle name.
Okay.
And in Ghanaian, Akosua means baby girl born on a Sunday. So in the Ghanaian culture, they kind of assign one of the names to the day of the week they were born.
Beautiful.
And so
God,
that's where that comes from.
Man, anybody that hasn't met Sarah the first time they meet her, she that woman is, she's out of this world, man. I'm so glad that both of you found each other, because she is an angel. Her,
I'm a lucky dude.
She's radiant, man. It's rare to find, somebody that is that sort of, you could tell the warmth and the she's completely supportive of you. I think you guys kind of nurture each other's interests, and it's a good partnership, man. You've been married.
It really is.
How long you been married now?
Let's see. It's going to be, it's going to be 4 years this October. We've been together 16 years.
Yeah, no, like it's as long as I've known you, you guys have been together. I remember working with your family's business. I know that you, I remember having me come down with my kids to the dealership, right? We went down to
my brother's business.
That's right, your brother's business, and you had Greg Oden down there doing a little TV spot, and my kids were so small. I remember you guys were gracious enough to he popped out of this Charger that he was doing a commercial for.
Yes.
You took a picture with my kiddos with Greg, and he's palming my kids' heads with his hands, like as he stood up. But it's
I was producing. I was producing the commercial for my brother's business. It was a lot of fun. I wrote the music and was involved in the production and direction of it and stuff, and assembling and editing. It was a lot of fun.
You got a lot of hats to wear, man. But
it's cool, man. You need more hats, man. I'm telling you, it's like holy shit, man.
Yeah. If you can keep the plate spinning, and not break any. But
fortunately right now with I was hoping like right around now, Kevin, that I'd be able to put out I have some old tracks that I cut like 24 years ago.
No way.
With Alan Childs is on it, and Jack Daly, a great bass player, played with Lenny Kravitz and plays with Little Stevens, Disciples of Soul and stuff like that, Monster. And there's one track I'm trying to get Carmine on, that we cut way back that needs his input on it. And I was hoping to get all that stuff done over, the beginning of this year, put it out late spring, but then the virus hit,
Damn you, pandemic.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, but it's making me rethink things, and I'm still going to put it out. And this afforded me the opportunity to do some writing and some wood shedding too. So it's good.
Do you still because I think there's still plenty of legs left on the Akosua record, right? I mean that man, Road Chimps is one that just ripping tune. Everybody seems to love that song.
Oh man, I love that tune. It comes from I saw something on Animal Planet, and it was about these chimps that just like turned on their owners and like did all these horrible things, like tearing their face off, and little novel things like biting their fingers off, and that kind of and I'm saying, what the?
That's what spawned
a whole other. Yeah, that's the. It's bedtime for Bonzo, a whole new spin. Man.
No kidding.
Like, holy shit, man! It's like this is way too hip for me. So. So the song is really kind of an abstract, kind of linear kind of thing that kind of takes it out, and it's very free. Thanks, man. It's a lot of fun.
The album is stunning and really diverse, right? I mean, so it's one that it's a great driving record, because you can kind of get lost in the record. There's so much to it. But I was hoping to hear a lot of those songs live. I really want to see the three of you guys do that thing live.
Yeah, we did most of it when we did a gig. Was it last May? I think you were out of town or something.
Yeah, you were at Jimmy Max.
And actually was at Jack London's.
Jack London Review. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it was a lot of fun. I had Tal fly up, and we had John Mazzacco,
Oh, nice.
and Ramsey Embeck, and we threw down, man. It was really a lot of fun.
I haven't
And
seen Ramsey in.
oh man, Ramsey, great musician.
I mean, I haven't seen him in a long time since we did a lot of those gigs
Yeah,
together.
I communicated with him about maybe 2-3 weeks ago.
Really
Yeah,
good, man.
and he's doing good. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was hanging, waiting for. I told John Masako, I says, man, once this pandemic or whatever is over, and there's kind of a new normal, whatever that may be, it's like we're fucking doing some hits around town. I don't give a fuck. It's a shot.
Yeah.
I don't give a rat's behind, man. We're plugging in and we're playing and we're making some sounds.
Shutting the rooms down, man. Yeah, I think we're all jonesing for that big time. You know, big like JD. What did JD had this question? He wanted me to bring something up. I was just gonna look for it.
Okay.
He said, I was supposed to ask you about 29.
Oh, Peanut Butter.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the band with Lenny that I did 3 albums with.
Okay.
Spoke about. And the first single that we released off the first album was a tune called Peanut Butter.
Okay.
And it was written by Don Blackman, who passed away about maybe 5 years ago. And Don was a genius.
Yeah.
Just, just really super brilliant. His solo album, I'd encourage a lot of people to go out there and seek out Don Blackman's. You'll find it on YouTube. You'll find the entire LP. It's really, and this stuff is like 1981, and it's still, it's one of those gems that just really kind of withstood the test of time. So he comes up with this tune, Peanut Butter. So we're all kind of like, before we went to do the record, it's like kind of like demo time. Everybody's bringing in their tunes to share with the rest of the musicians. So Donald brings this tune in, right? And, we're at rehearsal, and he did his demo on an upright piano, and he got all the kids from his neighborhood. He had them sing the individual parts. So it's like the lyric goes, when you're feeling hungry, ain't got nothing to eat, take me to the kitchen, peanut butter can't be beat. So it's this novelty, wacky tune, and the lyrics are so funny and charming, but what's happening underneath is so funky. It's in, but it's also out, what's happening harmonically underneath it. It's really, really crazy.
That's cool.
It took off, man. It was like a big R&B hit.
Really?
I mean, yeah, we're like #2 underneath Rock With You by Michael Jackson on the R&B charts. I mean, that's when we toured with Prince and Rick James. That's a whole other story, man. That's all.
Dude. Yeah. And honestly, you and I could do a weekly conversation and tell just a chapter in your book. Man, I'm sure you've been told a million times you need to come out with a book.
Yeah, I do. And my wife is really urging me to do that. So I'm going to start compiling shit,
This is the time, right?
Yeah, it is.
How else are you passing your time these days, buddy, with this quarantine?
Taking long walks we have like a reserve around where we live. And, it's like there's barely any people. So there's nobody. I take my dogs for long walks in the hood, and,
Nice.
and just stretching the legs and doing the social distancing, but not really going out that much, man. I'll go out in the backyard, get some rays. It's beautiful, as here today is when it's beautiful in Portland, Oregon, it's stunning how beautiful it is.
Oh man, Mount Hood right now. Have you ever seen it? So radiant.
It's amazing.
Crisp.
It's amazing. The other night, I think somebody posted a picture right around dusk, sunset, and like the moon was out, and and Mount Hood was there. It was just crazy beautiful.
Man.
Snow capped. I mean, it's just crazy. Just beautiful.
We're fortunate to have a beautiful space to live, man.
It is, so it's beautiful. The weather's been fantastic. So getting the sun rays, man, I mean, getting the rays of sun is really important. So I'll either be in the backyard in there playing my guitars. I've got a guitar in just about every room in the house.
Oh, that's great.
And so if I'm even if I'm watching TV, I'm noodling. I'm just, working on shit, always try to work on shit that I find hard, you know, it's like, so that's good.
So what's hard for you right now?
What's hard for me right now? Well, it's kind of like what I'm all about melody, but I'm big on chromaticism too, because a lot of a lot of really cool vibey licks, or kind of chromatic licks. There's an essence of chromaticism to it. I'm just trying to really weave in my statements musically, in terms of what I'm saying on the instrument, for it to be statement orientated, but still not forgetting these other kind of chromaticisms that kind of lead you to different places. That's what I've been working on, as well as always, working on listening to a lot of film scores, because that's what inspires me.
Really?
Well, yeah.
What's the most recent that just stood out to you?
I thought Thomas Newman's work on 1917 was spectacular.
God. Wow.
I mean, Thomas Newman is my favorite, and John Williams, Alexander Desplat, who did Little Women.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful score. Thomas Newman is he's my current favorite, and love Lyle Workman's work too. I don't know if you know of Lyle Workman.
No.
He's a guitarist. He used to play in Bourgeois Tag and played in Jellyfish.
Okay. Oh my God. Yeah.
He's well involved in film music now. Scored Superbad. He's
really
scored 40-Year-Old Virgin.
That's another name.
He's a monster guitar player, but he's also a monster composer. And he's been sharing me some of the things that he's been doing with orchestral work, and it's really inspiring. So seek out Lyle Workman. He's brilliant. Yeah. And anything Kirk Fletcher is always an inspiration to listen to play. Josh Smith, Eric Gales. There's so many great players out there, man. Luke, always got to listen to what Luke is up to, and Landau.
Right.
Shit, man, Landau was the
right.
It's crazy good.
Yeah, Batten said the same thing, man. I know he worked with her on her first record too. So he produced her first solo album.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Lando did, yeah.
Oh,
I could be wrong. I know he had some involvement. She might correct me, but I'm pretty sure that's what I remember. So
that's cool. The arc of his work is really special. The first time I met him, it's like he was on fire in LA and I was like on fire in New York. So sometimes when Bernard would come out to the West Coast, he would use Mike Landau. So there was a point when I was gonna tour with Rod, and Rod invited me to shoot his video for Lost in You off that Out of Order record. So me and Landau shot the video together. Wow. And that's the first time I had met him, but never really recorded with him. But I then again saw him when he was working with Seal.
Oh.
And that was a great band. Tony Levin.
Oh, yeah.
Was it Brian Blade on drums?
Right. Yeah.
David Sanchez on keyboards and Mike Landau. Oh, what the fuck? Yeah. What a band. It was fun. But I went to the show. It was right next door to Power Station. It was a Sony Recorders. I was blown away.
Wow.
I mean, Landau's playing. The whole show was spectacular. But Mike, I mean, I don't think there's a guy playing a Stratocaster as well as Mike is. That's how good he is.
That says a lot, man. When you can hear Eddie Martinez, this, blown away by another artist, another band, that says something for sure. God, man, I got to tell you, like I said, you and I could go through chapters in the book for about 6 weeks, and I got to wrap us up. But you know what? I think I would love to just maybe touch on the fact that before we started the conversation publicly, we were talking about being present and kind of appreciating, the blessings that we have right now, man. And I know that a lot of people are struggling, and to hear that you're just taking the time to get out there with your dogs and with Sarah and appreciating being present right now, being able to share these experiences and stories is a really valuable thing to a lot of people, man. I want to thank you. It's really, man.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. I tell people I equate this to when I was a little kid, I would hear my parents and my aunts and uncles, and I was always ears. I always wanted to listen to what the older folk were talking about. I just gravitated towards their stories.
Yeah.
And their stories were the Depression and what it was like to live during the Depression, and World War II. Those are the two seminal moments in their lifetime. And I think this is what is happening to us right now. And I think we'll be talking about this in that context in the future.
Sure.
And the innovation that's going to come from all this is going to be mind-boggling.
That's a great.
I think even though it's horrible what's going on, and it's terrible. It's incredibly sad for the loss of life.
For sure.
but there's going to be some innovation out of this. It's going to be game changing.
Yeah.
And we need to look at this, and how other way can you take it? You can't live with you can't live with the burden of the hurt that it's put on all of this.
You're right. Yeah,
we need to let that go, and we need to embrace. We need to seek the light in all of this.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not much, but I think there is light at the end of the tunnel.
A lot of it comes from this, and really we gotta lean on people. And
yeah.
I feel like you and I could not even see each other in person a year at a time, but I feel like there's a connection that I was so excited to share with people, because if people haven't met you, they need to know who Eddie Martinez is and what he's all about. This dude,
man.
You mean the world to me, man. So
Same here, buddy.
God, man, I can't wait for the pandemic to be done. So let's get out there. Let's play some music and just share life together. All right.
You know it.
All right, give Sarah a squeeze for me.
You bet, man. Oh, thank you so much. Everybody, check out the record. It's available on iTunes.
Yeah, I'll post you know what? I'll archive this on my site on kevinrankin.com. I'll put links to the Apple and Spotify and all that. It's a crazy badass record. So
thank you so much, Kevin.
I love you, man.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Eddie. Take care, buddy.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, peace.
Peace.